Back to the Mike Rosehart Show. We're live again for another episode, and today we're going to talk about some of the interesting world events and how they are going to affect things. For one, we are in Florida experiencing, I'm not in Florida, I'm back in Canada right now, but they're experiencing an insane hurricane after hurricane after hurricanes this hurricane season. Hurricane Milton, Category 5 hurricane, ripping through, now broadening in size, so big that it is going to come in on the west coast of Florida, potentially from like Tampa all the way I heard down to like, almost, I even heard some reports almost close to like Naples, which is crazy, or like Fort Myers kind of thing. And then all the way across up Daytona Beach, all the way down into, I heard some reports that it may even fall, farther south, potentially towards Miami, even like Fort Lauderdale, which is crazy. Several of my properties are going to be affected by the hurricane. The police came and shut down a few of our hotels. They created evacuations of several of the units. It's been a wild shutdown. Thankfully, we have insurance. We're probably not adequately insured, but we're pretty insured. So hopefully things will be okay. We do have, again, insurance. So anything major should be covered. But again, I've never battled with insurance on something like this before. So we'll see how things go. We have sandbags down. Our staff is preparing. We're boarding windows. My crew is ready to go. Hopefully we get through this without any major hiccups. It's looking like it might just miss my hotels, which is fingers crossed. We have our seawall under construction as well on the oceanfront one. So the contractors there have made some preparations to hopefully hold things up. But yeah, craziness. What else is going on? Stock market's roaring towards new all-time highs in the S&P 500. Stocks I used to do a lot more shorting on, I do a lot less shorting on now, like Carvana, are up to $192 a share. It's a $5 stock, so it's trading at like 2,000% higher than its intrinsic value. Someday that will crash to zero, but the market is euphoric. The world is free money and everything is all good. It's a crazy world right now. I'm just shocked how far things have gone. Yes, probably, Chung, you should not. If you have a stop out, you could do that, sure. Buy insurance because it may go to $5 a share. There's a lot of risk there, but the momentum play is crazy. It's up like, it was $3 a share, now it's $192 a share. So it's done like 10,000 times percent return. It's just unreal how far some of these garbage meme stocks have go and can go. So it's a testament reminding us that the market will be irrational long than we can remain solvent. And I wish that real estate would trade the way some of these stocks trade. Like I wish we had real estate trading at 90 times earnings. Wouldn't that be crazy if we had like one cap rate properties, but we just don't? For some reason in real estate, there's logic. And banks come in and there's underwriting and proper understanding of how things actually work in the real world. Financials actually matter, but not in the stock world. In the stocks, it can be pure speculative 400 future PE ratio. World goes on. That was it's been a humbling year for me, humbling 2 years for me, trying to pick individual stocks, trying to short, trying to do some crazy stupid things with leverage that I had no business doing, trying to think that I was smarter than the market. And the truth is 99.9% of active traders don't beat the market over a 25-year period. So if you do ever beat the market and get lucky, get out. You will not beat it in the long term. And remember, most people don't. However, in the world of business and in real estate, it's a lot easier to beat the world and to beat the market. Because again, who you're competing with. In the stock market, competing with some of the best and brightest. You're competing against some of the craziest stuff in terms of algorithms and that sort of thing. But in the real estate world, AI, trading bots, none of that, there's no sophistication. It's really hard to evaluate property. It's an art more than a science. And the data inputs are difficult to quantify. It's hard to explain why on one street, Granny's house sells for X, Y, and Z, and on the same street, another house might sell for a slightly different amount because there's a different bedrooms, bathroom ratio, or square footage, or a lot of the time, realtors misinput the information. And so they'll type in, the human error factor is so large in real estate. It's something I think at some point, real estate will no longer be attractive to me. And that's because at some point I foresee the removal of like agents and things like that, where it's all machine driven and marketed. And it's to the point where like everything is perfect, where we have 3D scans of every room. So there is perfect information. And once there's perfect information and it can be disseminated to a large audience, then all of a sudden the arbitrage that I have, someone going in and saying, hey, this listing didn't have a basement listed, but it has a basement, or like it didn't show the guest house and it has a guest house. Things like all these kinds of things that are ways I can add value will be no more when the market can perfectly arbitrage every opportunity, because right now they can't. Right now, there's not a good market for buying and selling property and business, and there isn't perfect information on those properties. It doesn't get the exposure that it needs. So for now, it's an opportunity more than anything else. So yeah, guys. Someone's put a question here. Let's just do the Q&A for a sec here. David says, first time renewing a mortgage in January, the best I could find was a 4-year 4.44 fixed or variable prime minus 0.6. What should I do? It's a good question. It isn't such a clear-cut answer, right? On one hand, you've got, when we're talking about do you fixed in, do you do variable right now? I think Canada has a lot of cutting to come, a lot more rate cuts to come. So I think we will see another 1% reduction on prime, which would take prime to around, 5, high 4s within the next 12 to 18 months. Almost guaranteed. We may even see as low as in the 4, like low 4s for prime, which would mean that our 5-year fixed rates in Canada should be 2.99 or less on the teaser promotional rates. So that's pretty awesome in terms of, when you talk about opportunity, I think we're in an opportunity zone now, because once those rates happen and we're back down to 2.9, we're seeing insured rate promotions right now at 3.99 here in Ontario. So we're seeing 3.99% 5-year fixed rate mortgages again. And as prime continues falling, the market's already pricing in that prime is going to continue falling aggressively. So I guess on one hand, to talk through the prime variable versus the fixed product you're asking about, it's like, do you believe, I guess for one, like if you go fixed, you'll win in the early years and lose in the later years. So if you plan to keep the property for the entire time and, you're thinking about like what's better now versus later, the variable is going to be worse in the short term, but better, I think, over the longer term. However, there's a risk component with variable. With fixed, you have no risk. You know what your rate is going to be for the entire 5 years. With variable, we know right now that variable is worse than the 4.44 you're offered. Your variable rate will be at like 5 something, right? I think you said it was minus 1%. I double checked the question. The questions are gone now. I have to like click this. Just scroll up. Okay. Minus 0.6. Actually, variable minus 0.6 isn't very good. That's actually not a great discount. You could probably negotiate minus 1% on some of these prime products, depending which bank or credit union you're with. I've seen some rates that are better. So I actually think that fixed rate is just objectively better in terms of discount off of market rates. So just like knowing the market and where things are with rates in Ontario, the fixed is a better promotion right now for you in terms of like, let's just pretend we don't know what's going to happen in the future with rates. As it is right now, the variable product is priced worse in terms of discount. So for that reason, I'd probably go fixed. If you can afford, if you can run your numbers at 4.44 and you're like, you know what, for the next 3 years or whatever, I don't know if it's a 3-year fixed, or I think you said 4-year fixed. And your numbers work. Remember, you can always renew 6 months before your term ends with no penalty. So I always recommend to renew 6 months before with no penalty if the rates and the environment is preferable. Also, pro tip, if you ever go to refinance or sell, renew again into a variable rate product so you can break the mortgage with very little breakout fee. That's huge. In terms of deciding on the fixed versus variable, I think it really comes down to like risk tolerance. There's a really good chance that if you're a little bit risk averse, the fixed will not be as good over the 5 years. It'll perform worse, but your risk is reduced. And so I think there's some value to having that. Having gone through what we've gone through in the last 3 years, where I didn't think rates would get as high as they did for as long as they would, until 6 months in, then I adjusted my entire outlook, and I was like, look, I think they're going to be higher for longer. But you remember initially, guys, I was on here sharing that I didn't think rates could go that high for that long, until I started looking at some of the data, and I'm like, holy shit, yes, they can. And look how slow inflation is reacting. And so I adjusted my feedback. As any smart person would, they would admit that their forecast is wrong and adjust based on data. And based on the data that I'm seeing right now, I see another 50 basis point cut coming in Canada. I see 1.5% over the next 18 months in Canada. So we're going to see significant cuts. The Canadian economy is in rough shape, and we need stimulus. And the government has shown time and time again, they will bail out Canadian real estate. It is the backbone of GDP growth in Canada. They will bail it out irregardless of what the US did. But the 50 basis point cut that they just got in September in the United States was very bullish for a 50 basis point cut here in Canada. So again, I'm very excited for more cuts. We will at least get 25 basis point cuts every meeting going forward. So the longer you can hold out, the better I think rates are going to price. At this moment right now, I would say that it seems like the 4-year fixed is a slightly better product in terms of the discount that you're getting. But I do think that over the 4-year period, the 4-year fixed will lose to variable. There has been very few periods in history where the variable rate product has lost to the fixed rate product here in Ontario. If you backtest that over the last 30 years, there was like 6 or 7 years in the last 30 years where it actually won out to be on the variable rate side, to be on the fixed rate side. And this was one of those periods in history. 2022, 2023, 2024, one of those 3-year periods in history where if you had fixed in before, you're better off than the variable rate product. But over the long term, rates are usually low and they stay low. Government likes inflation. And so when inflation falls back to 2-3%, the government's like, we don't have a crisis anymore. Yes, there was 25% inflation before, but we don't care. We're not going to deflate that. We'll just inflate wages and we'll just deal with this being the new reality of what the dollar is worth. They don't fix past inflation. So if you're on fixed income, you're fucked. Just remember that. The system is designed to print themselves out of debt and to continue to grow the economy through inflation. It is a means of, debt repayment for most of the first world countries, especially in Canada and the United States. So we will continue to have, I would say, trend, I guess they're tracking 2%, but the shadow inflation being really more like 3 or 4%, which is again why a core tenet of my investing strategy has always been around acquiring assets with leverage. If you can borrow at a fixed rate debt or at a lower debt than the cost or return ROA of the asset, and your asset is growing faster than the cost of debt, your debt is eventually worthless. You buy a property for $1 million, you put an $800,000 mortgage on it. In 25 years, that property is worth $3 million and the mortgage balance on it has been paid down significantly. But even if it hadn't been, that mortgage isn't worth anything because the asset's worth $3 million now. And the mortgage, even if you didn't pay out any mortgage over 25 years, 800 grand on $3 million means your equity has gone from 200 grand to 2.4 million. That's what happens over time when you lever up on a stable asset that never gets margin called, like real estate. Businesses are good too. They're cash flow positive and they service the debt. I like self-servicing debt. When I originally started investing in stocks, I built a stock portfolio that was a dividend portfolio that was tax preferential, paid an 8% compound dividend rate. If you look since I talked about it in 2020, that portfolio did very well. I wish I didn't go into tech options and all that shit. If I just stuck to the dividends, yes, dividends went down, but they continued paying. The stock price went down, but they continued paying on average on this portfolio that I built an 8% aggregate return of dividend yield, tax preferential. And even though rates went crazy and like cost of margin went up from like, it was at 3%, 2-3% of their active brokers, up to I think it's like 7% at the peak. And now it's falling again. Even at the peak, the dividend stocks covered the payments. And so over the long term, you got to print the value of that debt decreased. In the last 4 years, we've seen inflation go 20-25%. So the value of that debt has gone down by 20% over that time. It's not worth as much anymore. So the money you're paying back to the bank isn't as valuable. Whereas the assets continued producing cash flow to service that debt. So I even think a stock portfolio can make sense if you build it around cash flow positive stocks and businesses. I don't like stocks as much because you can't use as much leverage. If you use a lot of you can use a lot of leverage in stocks, but what happens is you get wiped out when the volatility forces liquidations of your shares at shit prices that you don't want. With real estate, if real estate falls 40%, the bank begs you to keep the property and keep paying. They might even lower your rate if you're a big enough client and say, hey, please just keep making your payments. We don't want your property. We don't want to take it from you. The bank wants to take your shares from you. They'll liquidate you in a second. In the business world, they don't want your business, so they'll work with you. They won't margin call your business. They'll work with your business through rough times when valuation of your business falls. You just hold the business and keep cash flowing it and make your debt payments. That's where leverage is good. When they can't call the debt, when they don't want to call the debt. Businesses, great thing to lever up. Houses, again, they appreciate in value, same as a business. They produce cash flow. If you buy the right kinds of property, it produces cash flow, services the debt. That's good. Over a 5-10 year period, you will win every time. Those are the kinds of assets we want to build, and I think it's a cornerstone of any good wealth building or even wealth preservation strategy, because inflation is the enemy of the early retirement portfolio, and you need to be building a portfolio to fight against that. So, yeah. Thanks, Noel, for the super chat. Good to see you on. Hope things are going well over at the hotel. You're a G, brother. I appreciate you. Appreciate you tuning in. Noel's come into my life him and his brother come in my life in a great way. And so I'm super thankful for them being in my life, especially Ethan. Ethan's been in my life for the last year and he's been awesome. I'm getting to know Noel better. Tristan says, is the hurricane affecting your return to Florida? Yes, unfortunately, Florida is being mass evacuated from, like, we're talking Tampa to even Orlando. People are freaking out. The hurricane's going to rip through there. And then right into Daytona Beach on the east side, our hotel was evacuated on the ocean. The police came by and like gave notices and said, you have to let everyone get out because we're closing the bridges down on the island. They might get wiped out. So there's no emergency services at all. If someone pulls a gun on you, we won't come and save you. So for like the next 6 days, everything's shut down, which is wild to me because the hurricane isn't even, like, it's going to Cat 1 by the time it makes it, maybe Cat 2, knock on wood, by the time it makes it to those hotels. But I do need to get down to Florida. I do have projects down there. As soon as the hurricane is done, I will get down there. I need to find a companion to bring down with me to, I guess, help me and work through the project and just be company, because I'm not going by myself. I do not have any interest in that. At my stage in life, I will use my network to bring great people with me. So hit me up if you have any interest in coming down to beautiful Florida with me once these hurricanes are done and it's beautiful 28-degree weather. We're gonna go down to the mansion. We're gonna finish it off. So if you want to be a driving companion with me and do some mentoring or whatever, I will sell a ticket to my passenger seat. I will sell a mentee ticket to someone who wants to come for a 2-week trip. It will be expenses paid. Staying in a mansion, 8,000 square foot mansion with an elevator is one of the projects we're flipping. We will have to stop at my hotels, but the main project will be the mansion. So hit me up if you're interested in that. You guys know where to find me on Instagram or wherever else. So I will be getting down to Florida, but I'm waiting for this hurricane to subside. Someone says, stocks are ripping. Do you own NVIDIA? I don't. I don't own any tech at all. I was shorting tech for a long time. The valuations are getting insane. I think they will correct at some point, but I don't want to touch that. I do not want to be involved anymore in trying to predict where the price of these things will go. I don't know. I think that in the long term, NVIDIA will be a $100 stock, an $80 stock. It will grow into itself. It's not currently. I think it's trading at a crazy multiple to what it currently is, and you're paying for too much growth, which may actually end up happening, but you're paying for the growth that hasn't happened yet. I don't like to pay for something that might happen, that hasn't happened. It's like giving a contractor a massive deposit. Are they going to show up? Are they going to do the work? It's a lot of risk. So I prefer to, mitigate my risk. And so I think that would be a large risk play. And you maybe have a small percentage of your portfolio that you put in high risk plays. But no, I don't have any tech shares. I was like super long Meta as an example. Meta was value at $88 a share. I held it till $125 a share. It went to 600 plus. It went 600% in a year and a half. Meta has gotten crazy. It's overvalued now. It was undervalued. It was a great value play. Overvalued now. Once it gets on the hype train, I don't play around with momentum. I shouldn't even touch that stuff. I think that once it gets over its what's intrinsically worth based on cash flow and current valuation metrics, once the premium is above what I think it's worth, I exit and I go on to something else. And in business, that served me very well. In the stock market world, things are irrational. And so I just don't. Like, I'll have a dividend portfolio, produces some cash flow. I like to find businesses that I can lever up, assets that I can put leverage against. I don't have to worry about, I don't lose sleep over if NVIDIA is going to crash 20% tomorrow or go up 15%. I don't need that heartache and that stress in my life. I like stable, I like predictable. I like when I can lean in and my efforts control the outcome. If I put in enough effort, I get the result that I want no matter what. I like that. That in real estate, I can lean in and I can raise up the cash flow, reduces the expenses. I can lean in and sell the building if I want. I control what happens. With NVIDIA, I have zero control. With Carvana, I would have zero control. In fact, I think that company will go to $5 a share at some point. Carvana specifically is a trash company. But anyway. Is this the first time you dealt with natural disasters? We've had natural disasters before, but I've been lucky. The properties that I owned in 2022, and 2023, and 2021, we had a little storm that hit like Orlando, one of our properties a while back. It was not super major. We had some light hurricanes that have hit some of our stuff, but never like the hurricane 2 weeks ago, Helen. It went through Lake City and ripped through our flip, and that sucked. So that was the first time I've been like devastated a bit by one. And then these ones, I may get by on these ones too, but we'll still see. I don't want to like count my eggs or baskets yet, but yeah, there's definitely a cost. Like the shutdown has a cost. Staffing to board up windows. We had to board up windows and do the sandbags in front of the low-lying areas in the parking lot and stuff to stop the water from coming into the office because there's some areas of the hotel where it's if there's a 2-3 foot wave surge or water, even just flooding from the rains, just hitting the streets, that stuff will get in and flood. So we got to try to avoid that as best we can. Of course, we have insurance, and hopefully that will protect us through this. So still stressful. Of course, I'm going to lose a little sleep at night over it, but yeah. Could you scoop up more deals after the hurricane? I may. I've always had my eye out, both here, like, again, for me, real estate is about building a lifestyle business. Like, I want to go to these properties from a lifestyle perspective. So I'm trying to find something that would fit a lifestyle perspective. As much as I am ROI, it's about lifestyle for me. And when I deviate from that, I usually regret it. Like when I buy something just for the money, I'm always like, why am I doing this for the money? Like at my stage in the game, I've unlocked financial independence. I should be only doing this for passion projects, for things I enjoy. So I'm trying to not buy crappy properties in crappy areas. I'm trying to buy really nice stuff that I can pivot. And like the question I've been asking myself is like, would I stay here? Would I go to this resort? If not, what do I need to do to make this a desirable place that I want to bring my family? That's been a test that has served me really well. Whenever I'm using that test, it's like, if I don't make it nice enough from a hotel perspective to service my family, you get the wrong clientele. So that's the right question to be asking. But yeah, of course, I'm always looking for deals. That said, like I'm very much at capacity. We picked up $30 million in properties in the last like year and a bit. So I am drowning in logistical complications. I probably shouldn't pick up more. I have one more hotel that I'm picking up, and that's because of foreclosure on the second mortgage that I lent. So I'm gonna have to probably buy the first mortgage out and take the property and then put it for sale and stabilize it a little bit. But I didn't want to take this 7th hotel on, but I will because I lent on the project. And then the market's kind of fallen apart, and there's a whole situation, the people I lent to going bankrupt probably or something. So shitty situation. But that's the nice thing about lending. A lending business is great too. You could take a lending business and you can lever up at the bank once I'm big enough. I'm not big enough yet. Once I am, I can lever up at the bank, and our returns get super juicy. The cash flow from the notes pays the loan to the bank. It's a pretty much non-callable debt. It's fantastic that way. And if you underwrite properly, and I've learned a lot through this recession about how to underwrite deals properly. But when you underwrite deals properly, it's fantastic. It's a fantastic business. Like it's passive. No one calls you at 2 a.m. You don't have any of the stress. The equity holders, they're stressed out protecting their equity. But as a debt holder, secured, say 70% loan to value, their whole down payment has to get wiped out and they have to go personally bankrupt before I start losing $1. So I get to sleep at night really well. That's why my long term would be to have a few resort properties. Of course, like I like to have the real estate exposure, build a portfolio around it, but I really want a lending fund. I want to get a bunch of people together, build a fund where we can get like a 10, 12, 14% compounded return on safe, cool projects. And I can build a team around it, and it's super passive. It gives me something to do. I get to go out to lunch, go to golf with the right kind of people and have fun and fund these kind of cool deals. But being a deal funder is way better than being a deal grinder. And you have to do the deal grinding to get to the deal funding if you don't come from wealth. And I didn't come from any money. So like I had to earn it myself, which means I had to go through the shit. The nice thing about that is I've gone through the shit. So I know when someone's bullshitting me, I know what it takes to get something done. And you can sniff out a good operator by having gone through the trenches. I could, again, if I have to lean into a project, that's value add. I could lean in and do something to save the project. I can make some extra money doing it. So next question. Thuran, how you doing? Good to see you on as well. Thank you for joining the stream tonight, and all the people watching the replay, thank you as well. But this time next year, do you think rates will be back to where they were in 2021? I don't know if we'll be back to 2021 rates, say, by next time this year, or next year this time. I think within like 18 to 24 months, we will trend towards that. There are potential resistance points along the way though, guys, where I think we may get sticky in the 3s. And we were sort of in the 1s and 2s in terms of our rates, almost 0% overnight lending in 2021. Getting back to that level, we'll get there, but I think there might be some hiccups along the way, and there's quite a bit of risk for me to want to price in that level. I just don't want to bet on that. I would bet money that we see a 2.99% 5-year fixed rate mortgage in the next 18 months. We will see that promotion. It will come up. I've been calling that out when it wasn't, on trend, and now it's going to be. Brokers are starting to talk about it. People are starting to forecast. We will see 2% mortgages again on the 5-year fixed rate, 30-year mortgages, and that will be sexy. Insured mortgages will be sexy. So I'm really happy to see all of that. I just don't see, like the economy's weak in Canada. I just don't see us in a position where the government doesn't bail us out. Like it's possible that rates get like, if we had a huge stimulus package from the government, it would be possible for them to keep rates elevated. But it either comes through central bank lowering rates or it comes through government stimulus. And so maybe we see a combination of the two and it keeps rates in the threes. Where we are now, you can do business. Like the rates are starting to fall to a point where it actually is starting to make sense to underwrite and do deals. So yes, I will say it, yeah, it's starting to look good. It's starting to look really good. I'm really feeling good about the next year, as opposed to like it didn't feel good, a year ago. So big changes in market sentiment, which are great. I think now is the time to be acquiring assets and getting ready for the rip that will come into 2030. I think we're gonna have a big boom. We're in a lull. We're gonna look back on this and be like, 2024 was such an opportunity. 2023 was such an opportunity. And it might not feel like it now. 2025 is gonna be such an opportunity too. We're gonna look back and be like, holy shit, I wish I would have. I wish I would have this. I wish I would have that. Well, instead of wishing, get out there and do it, guys. Start taking on those deals. Start building the experience. If you're watching this channel and you don't have any experience, reach out to someone who does have experience. Shadow them, mentor them, get into a deal doing something. Trade your time. If you don't have any money, trade your time. Build connections, build a network. Into the next bull market, like my brand and my connections, I believe are the most valuable thing that I have. I actually think that you guys, my network, the people that I know, the people that I've done, the experience that I have is worth more than the 8 figures I have. If I had lost all of the 8 figures I have right now, all the assets, everything, and I started again, I would still be back to multimillionaire in like 12 to 24 months. I can make millions a year because of the knowledge and the network. And so that's what's the most valuable thing is when we're in a recession like this is the best time. Everyone's like, oh, this is the worst time, Mike. Like everyone's going bankrupt and there's all these problems and doom and gloom and blah. And it's true. There was a new stat, 1 in 20 businesses just filed for bankruptcy in Canada. 1 in 20, that's 5% of all businesses gone. That's messed. That's levels we haven't seen in a long time. We're in pain. But pain is opportunity for those who hustle. So don't give up. Push. This is the time to build skills. Skills and network equals wealth. So the most important thing, and I have people watching this too. I know a few of you guys are watching this who are in debt up to your eyeballs. And maybe in 2021, 2022, you took on loans and debt against properties to do flips or whatever, and you're stuck with these properties and they're not cash flowing and you're underwater. Hold on. The time to cut was before, but if you're still hanging on, I mean, congrats, you're still hanging on. If you still have your name, you still have your brand, you can probably come back. And the network is really important. Grind it out, pay back your debts, build your skills, and there is an opportunity to always come back. So I'm very bullish on the comeback story. And for those people who are hanging in there, you can do it. So that's my motivational Wednesday for you guys today who are watching this, who are struggling, or who are just getting started. Don't give up. Don't give up. Good evening, Will. How you doing? Jung says 25 or 30-year mortgage. They do have a 30-year amortization now in Canada, so they're allowing us to stretch our payments over longer periods. But in commercial real estate, like if you buy like a 30-unit building or even a 10-unit building, you can do 50-year amortizations in the MLI Select program at 5% down. And they're talking rates in the high threes. It's getting attractive. And again, that's why the Canadian real estate, market is so boistered or kept up, is because of that cheap debt that we have in Canada and the government backing of our real estate. Canada is, I can't say this enough, my favorite country in the whole world. I love Canada. It has the best natural resources in terms of like the raw land. We're like the biggest and the best. And we have such a small population. We could add 70 million people to our population like that and it'd be no problem. Canada could handle it. We'd have infrastructure issues and blah, blah, blah. But like we could grow into having a 100 million plus population easily. We could be a top 10 world economy if we had good management. We are under some of the worst political leadership in any of the G20 countries. It is embarrassing how bad Canada is fumbling and managing the hand of cards that they have. It's like we're flush and we're like, oh, I'm going to fold. It's like, what are you doing? Anyway, I don't want to get emotional about politics, but I think things are going to change. 80% of Canadians hate Justin Trudeau, our current prime minister. So 4 out of 5 Canadians wouldn't vote for him. If we called for election right now, he would be out and we'd have new conservative leadership. I don't know how things are going to change into the future, but things need to change. Canadians aren't happy. People are suffering. We have such a great country and we could be such an amazing place if we had tax incentives and business incentives to bring the development innovation here to Canada. Canada's an amazing place. There's like, I will eventually have to leave Canada, and it will be partly because I leave Canada in the winters anyway. And I hate Canada. The place in southwestern Ontario where I live, the winters are brutal. But in the summer, it's one of the best beaches, nicest, clean, fresh water. There's nowhere I'd rather vacation than Lake Huron in Ontario in Canada, or in like BC or Calgary in the summer. Fantastic place to be on the earth. And I've been to, the Bahamas. I've been to Africa. I've been to Brazil. I've traveled a little bit, and we got a little taste of different places in the world, and nothing compares to Canada in the summer. It's the best, and it could be so much better here. We have some cultural poison and political cultural poison, but the base of Canadians, they're so nice and kind. The people here, we're one of the best people in the world. And if we just could apply ourselves and use what we have, we could be, one of the top 3. We were at different points in history in the top 10 in terms of GDP growth. In the 90s, Canada was a firehouse of power. We were exploiting all of our natural resources. We were on the world stage. We can get back there again. We used to have the tech, like we had BlackBerry. We had the tech hub of the world. We had a lot of tech too, and that's kind of faded. But we had some great innovation, great tech, great mines, great natural resources. We had so much going for us. We had the most fresh water, and just in terms of raw land, as population balloons, we have so much of it in Canada. And climate change, don't get me started. We're going to be a tropical oasis here. Winter's going to go away. If global warming is a thing, Canada's going to be the best. Are you kidding me? I want as much land as I can in Canada if global warming is a thing. And taxing global warming doesn't stop it. It just happens in different places on the earth. It's like, oh, you can't do it here. Okay, I'll go over here in the grass and do it. Like, don't get me started on global warming. Like, it doesn't fucking do anything. Emissions don't change at all. Just go to another third world country and do it there. But, it's politically correct to focus on crushing innovation and crushing industry, so we can say that our farts don't stink. DC says, sold rental property accommodation, 4-month closing, blah, blah, blah. Bought it as is. On last week, they noticed mold in bathroom, tenants, damaged walls, blah, blah, stuff. Okay, you're saying that's not true. It sounds like some sort of question. So it sounds like you sold the property, the buyers are backing out, you said some issues, they're already firm. So if they're firm, you can just keep their deposit, or just choose not to release the deposit and then litigate over how much of the deposit you can keep. That's how it works in Canada. You could resell the property, and whatever the difference is for what it sells for and whatever your extra costs are, you just take out of their deposit or sue them for. They're on the hook. If they firmed up, that's it. Too bad. They had a chance for inspection. During that due diligence period, whatever they found, they had a chance to walk away. They've now firmed up. The deal is done. There's no backing out. People are pussies. When you sign a contract and you go through due diligence and you firm up, that means you've firmed up. You've made a commitment to you. So you've sold that property. They have a legal obligation to you now. If there are additional costs for delaying closing or to sell it to someone else, they are on the hook for those costs. So you have the power now that they firmed up. If they haven't firmed up yet, it's going to be on you to remedy those issues. So maybe what I'm saying is, like, in my vast, 150 closings, I can say I've had like 3 that didn't close due to various issues along the way. And at two of those situations, it was reasonable. We came to a mediation. I was like, look, I'll solve X and Y issue. Removing mold's actually not a big deal. Vinegar. You spray vinegar on mold and leave it, gone. You can wipe tile grout clean. I've got, mold off tons of surfaces. Not a big deal. Oftentimes people don't turn the fan on when they shower. So mold might not be a big deal. On your windows, it's probably because they didn't keep proper humidity. Maybe you need a dehumidifier added to your furnace. It's really, like, it sounds like it's not a big issue. If it is a bigger issue, that's something else. But if it is small, like people living in houses, like some of the new, more efficient houses, they just get a little bit of mold accumulation and mildew accumulation on the windows. That's normal. That's just like how the world is. And so you can just remedy that and clean it. You can add a humidistat and check the humidity. There are solutions. So it might not be an expensive solution. It could be an easy to fix solution potentially, in which case, like, find a common ground and get to closing. Or you could just be a hard ass and be like, nope, I'm gonna resell the property, and whatever I sell it for, my carry costs are on you. I'm keeping your deposit for the difference. Those are your choices. From a legal perspective, that's what you can do. There are probably some other things you could do along the way. I would say the easiest way, if you want this to close, is probably just to work with them. It's a lot of pain in the ass to put it back on the market, and who knows what will happen. I don't know how big their deposit was. Maybe there's risk you don't want to sue them, so it's just too much effort to sue them. I'm a Canadian. We don't like to sue. Like, suing is not Like in America, everyone sues each other. It's just how they are. Like there's a taillight warranty, and like you can't trust anyone at their word. In Canada, we try to find common ground, we try to work together to find a solution. So I would say, if you do get them back to the table, maybe say, hey, I will remedy these issues if you increase your deposit by $50,000, or like some amount that that they're going to guaranteed close. You find some sort of common ground, you solve the issue, they put more deposit up, it's going to close now. You put in the contract, they give up their deposit to you if they don't close. So that way you don't have to litigate over the deposit. It's automatically forfeited to you directly. And then fix the issues. And if they don't close, and there's an extension tactic or something, then you're protected. Because there are some assholes out there. Not a lot, but some. All right, next question. Dividend portfolio, juiced it up 18 to 14%. If you leverage a little, it can make 15 to 80%. Yeah, leverage to me is risk. And when a black swan happens, it's just too much risk. So I would recommend for most people, if they want to have a good sleep at night, to not apply more than 1-to-1 leverage. That's the right thing to do. I've been a degen before. I've put 10-to-1 leverage on and 15-to-1 leverage on. I've done stupid shit. Don't do that. Don't do that. The right way to do it is to apply very little leverage and to hedge and protect your portfolio. But ideally, you don't have to worry about it. Ideally, you could disappear for a year and not have to watch it. That's the right kind of portfolio. Timing the market is difficult. And so don't try to time the market. Build out a portfolio that you can not look at for a year. And if things get crazy and dividend stocks fall 30% or something, which again, we're going to a low interest rate environment again, should be bullish for dividend stocks. It will force yields away from bonds, will chase dividend stocks again. So it should push the value of the dividend stocks up, but who knows? The world's crazy. Anything can happen. We can have hyperinflation and anything can happen. So who knows? But yeah, I would say that reduce your risk. For me, my stock portfolio it should have been low risk. I have enough stress and risk in all my businesses and all the things I'm doing. What am I doing trying to create more risk and distraction over here? It was stupid. It was, my grandfather was a gambler. Maybe I'm channeling some of his genetic gambling, tendencies. I don't know. But like me in front of that Interactive Brokers Options menu, I just became a degen. I don't know what it was about me, but like all my good decision making went out the window. I took on like crazy trades, shorting like the craziest tech shit that was on momentum rides up, and did some dumb stuff. And so the lesson here is don't do that. Most stock traders don't build a lot of wealth stock trading. Most of them lose it over the long term, over a 25-year period. You'll see their charts. They might have crazy years where they're millions, but then they have crazy years where they're down millions because they take crazy amounts of risk. Most traders have a heart attack and die bald in their 50s. Trading is a tough job. Being in Wall Street is a tough job. I thought it was attractive. I would never. If you paid me $1 million a year, I still wouldn't be a full-time trader. If you paid me $2 million a year to work on Wall Street, I still wouldn't do it. It's a shit life being an investment banker. So that's my thought on it. There are much easier ways to make more money with less stress. Thanks for sharing. No problem, Juan. Happy to do it. You talk about average Canadian investors who are still a 9-to-5 employee can immigrate to the USA. Is it hard to get visas for a family that can lead to a green card? So the average Canadian, there are lots of ways you could move down. You could marry in the US. You could buy a business in the US, like a hotel. If you buy a hotel, you put a business application together, you can definitely get in. There's an E5 visa and there's an E2 visa. I don't know that the US, this is a general statement I'm just going to make. And all of the research I've done, I don't think the US is that much better than Canada in terms of like taxation or lifestyle. I like going to Florida in the summers or in the winters because it's like summer there when it's like winter here. Summer in Florida sucks. It's brutal. I wouldn't want to live in Florida year round. But in the winter, it's phenomenal there. The weather is like nice 26, 27 degrees Celsius every day, sunshine, hardly any rain. It's fantastic. But there are challenges with taxation there that are very similar to Canada. In fact, some of the structures that I've seen set up in Alberta and some of the active income corporations are better taxed in Canada than they are in the US. I know entrepreneurs who pay an average 10% tax. And I know entrepreneurs who've gone 10 years in Canada rolling their real estate portfolios with depreciation and whatnot and paid no tax. For like 10 years, they built like a $20 million portfolio paying no tax. So you can build a ton of wealth in Canada paying no tax just by structuring well. It isn't set up for the 9-to-5 person. Like the 9-to-5 person in Canada gets nailed on income. In Florida, it's better. I'm sure from a 9 to 5 perspective, if you're like a T Ford, W-2 employee in Florida, you would get better tax treatment in Florida. But as a business owner, it's not that much different. But there are processes. The E2 would be getting a job there. So you get hired with a job. The company will sponsor you. You can get a visa. You could apply there with an E5 investment visa, which would get you there through, buying some sort of hotel or a business there. And basically what they're looking for, I've heard it's like even up to like $100,000 a year in revenue, which is not a lot. It's a very small boutique hotel or a very small business would get you there. You build a business plan and you basically employ, the whole goal of it is like, I'm going to come to America and hire Americans and we're going to build wealth for America. And they're like, come on over. So also you're Canadian too. So like the Americans love Canadians. So it would be very easy to get a visa to be in the U.S. And then you can decide. You can go there for a year or two and see. I know lots of people who go to the U.S. and come back to Canada. I know people go to Bahamas, and I hear so many stories of people going there and coming back, and they're like, it wasn't worth it. What I see a lot of is they end up still living in Canada, but setting tax residency up in Dubai or Bahamas or somewhere else. And they still, maybe they spend like some of their time in say, Texas or Florida, or Arizona is very common as well. And yeah, I mean, I honestly love Canada in the summer. It's a shitty place to be in the winter. I think that from a tax perspective, as you get wealthier, Canada gets shit. Canada's really good. If you're like middle class and you build an early retirement portfolio, dividends are preferentially taxed. The principal primary residence is completely tax-free in Canada as well, so that's a huge tax shield. We have TFSAs, RRSPs, RESPs, businesses up to $500,000 a year per spouse of eligible 13% tax, 12 point something percent active income tax, which is very low, like 12% tax. That's with write-offs. So your real effective tax rate is probably like 6% in your corporation, which is like nothing. If you get enough deductions, I know people who are with growing businesses who show nothing because they have enough growth in their business that they have to fund that growth, that they offset all of the income to show nothing to the tax man. There's lots of those situations where fast-growing businesses, the government incentivizes us to grow our businesses. So if you're growing your business, they'll let you write off all of that growth. And eventually you'll pay tax on it when you sell your business. But in Canada, you get 1.25 million per spouse of tax-free capital gains tax on the sale of a business, if it qualifies as an active business. So there's 2.5 million per couple in the sale of your business. So you build up a business, you pay no tax the whole time you're building the business up. You could draw out 20 grand a year tax-free because personal tax rates in Canada are very, very low. If you draw a very low salary, you can draw that tax-free effectively, like 17,000 per spouse. That's 35,000 a year as a couple. You can draw your business tax-free, and then your business you could operate at pretty much no tax. Then you'll have a big capital gain when you sell your business. But if it's an eligible business, then you get all that tax-free too. So then you take your $3-4 million, you sell your house for $1 million capital gain over that 10-year period too, and you can go somewhere else. Take $3-4 million and exit Canada and set up tax residency somewhere else. Keep your Canadian passport. You're a dual resident, so you can come back to Canada anytime you want. You get cancer or something, boom, come back to Canada, free healthcare. So there's some really cool scenarios, like starting in Canada, that are super powered. And so, yeah, Canada's not that bad. As much as I rag on Canada, it has its problems. I still think Canada can be pretty awesome. I will eventually probably relocate, if not for tax reasons, if for lifestyle reasons. But that doesn't mean I won't still vacation in Canada. I mean, it's still a beautiful country. There's a lot of it I haven't explored yet, and a lot of it still more yet I want to explore. So, yeah. Okay. Oh, more questions popped up. I thought I was done. The stream. I'm trying to do these streams shorter, but they keep going. As much as I try to keep them 20 minutes, they always end up an hour long. Dorian says, selling off single-family duplexes to get in a cash position to buy bigger 10 to 20 unit multifamilies. That's a great idea. I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm in a position in my trajectory where I want to dump some of my properties that are smaller and buy bigger stuff, just easier to scale and better in general. So yeah, buying up smaller stuff. I agree with that. It's a good strategy. Will says, we're pretty shielded from bad weather between the Great Lakes. I mean, yeah, we get some bad weather here. I mean, you get the odd tornadoes and stuff like that. And hail is really bad. You get a really bad hailstorm or something. And the cold weather is really brutal on the properties here, and the ice and the freezing and thawing. So we have our own challenges with real estate here too. There's insurance in both places. There's insurance in Florida. As much as like hurricanes suck, and this is a really bad year. Like this might be the second worst hurricane ever to hit Florida. So like Milton might end up being like the worst. Even with the worst, there's insurance. In some cases, you can actually profit on insurance. I don't want to say that like publicly, but like I've heard stories of people who actually were like, they wrote me a check to rebuild this old building that I had, and it's like brand new now. And so they end up with a win, right? So sometimes you end up with a win through these natural disasters if you're properly insured. I'm not completely deterred from Florida, but there are definitely stresses that go along with it, and this is in one of those low periods of stress. But anyway, thank you everyone for watching. I'm gonna wrap this stream up for tonight. I appreciate everyone who tuned in. I appreciate all the questions. If you're watching the replay, hit the thumbs up button. Drop me a comment. I always love when people tune in and drop a comment. Yeah, lots been going on in my life. I've been super busy trying to grow and stabilize the portfolio that I have now. I'm growing up one of the biggest real estate portfolios I've ever had in my career right now, and I'm about to acquire a bunch more properties, and then I have to stabilize the lows. So it's definitely a busy time in my life. I'm looking forward to when I get to stabilize this portfolio, sell some of it off, and like load up the lending fund with a bunch more capital so that Rosehart Capital can begin funding more of you guys who are doing flips. So I get more of that passive return, sit back, go to lunches, do design plans, and do the stuff more that I love as opposed to like the ops. I really don't love the ops. I'm doing it because I know I can make good money doing it, but it's a job. And I'm sort of out of retirement, semi-retirement right now, and I'm not loving that, but I'm loving the money. So anyway, that's what's up with me. That's my update for the week. And if you guys have anything you want to discuss, hit me up. If anyone wants to come with me to Florida, hit me up on that as well. I will sell a all-inclusive ticket for $24.95 for 2.5 weeks in the mansion. You'll learn a lot, get to do some management and some flip work, and get your hands dirty a little bit too, and see as a fly on the wall how things are done. So the secret to unlocking wealth through you, 3 levers: control your financial future, spend less, earn more, and maximize returns to the difference. That's it. That's the secret to building wealth. Find ways to spend less money, find ways to earn more and maximize returns on all of your savings accounts and all of your investments. Find ways to get that money working for you in the best possible way to get the most yield without taking a ton of risk. Risk management is so important. All right, everyone. Have a good night. We'll see you next Wednesday, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You guys have a great night. And of course, follow along Instagram at Mike Rosehart and on Facebook. Bye, guys. Have a good night.